Welcome to MacroCode. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So today we are going to proceed with the employees management system in ASP.NET Core. So as you can see, we have our HR and payroll modules where we have the employees list. You can actually see the data. You can add a new employee, capture the records, upload a photo, and you can save these details. We also have our holidays. You can actually capture the holiday title, description, start date, end date, and you can save it. We also have leave adjustments. You can see leave adjustments, whether they are negative or positive. And you also have the leave balances per employee. And you can actually do an adjustment for the leave balances. So you can do a negative or positive adjustment. You can also indicate the number of days that you want to adjust. You also have the leave periods. You can create the leave periods. Then under leave applications, you have the leave types. You can see you can actually add a new leave type. We also have leave applications whereby you can create a new leave application, attach a document, select the leave type at the start date, end date, and even tie this to an employee. So we also have approved leave applications. So when leave are sent for approval, this can be approved. Then we also have the rejected leave applications under system administration. So on our previous video, we actually did something on approval entries. So we want to ensure that our application has a multiple user approval levels. So that is what we have been working for. And within the system administration, we have the designation, departments, banks, countries, town, cities, and even system codes and system code details. Then we also have the company. So for those who are following this series, so today we are going to proceed with our approval entries. So on our previous video, we added these details to the database, and you can see we actually have a table that does that. So we have here approval entries. So under approval entries, we captured some of the critical information that will help us to track the records that are being sent for approval. We have the record ID, which is the primary key. We also have the document type, whether it is a leave application, the document, the sequence. This is the sequence of approvals. The approver ID, this is the person who should be able to approve, the status, and even the date that this was sent for approval. So I want us to check this, and you can say here, you can have here, let's just do data annotation. So I'll just do display name. I'm going to have here the display name that I want. So I'll say this is record ID. And I'm going to have here as a document type. So this will be document type. Sorry, so this is document type. Then document type, then I can also do here approval sequence. You can just say sequence number. So this sequence number is actually the sequence of approvers. So you can actually set the number of approvers that you want. So then approval levels, then the approver ID, we need to tie each approval level here with an approver ID. So here I'll just say approver name. Then I'll also do here, we should be able to see also the status of the application. So this is the status. So this is the status of that particular record that is being sent for approval. Then this is the date sent for approval. Date sent for approval. Then we can also have the last modified. So any modification done to the document, whether someone rejects, we can have. So you can say last modified on. So this will track any changes that are being done on that particular record. Then we can also say last modified by. So you can say here last modified by. So this will give us the name. So here we need to close this. Sorry, need to close that. Then we can also have here the comments. So these are the comments that the approver might want to have within when he or she is approving. So this is what we have done. So I'm going to stop this, then maybe relaunch. So today I want us to figure out something. So we are now able to have the entries of the approver, whereby we can track the record type, whether it is a leave application, whether it is any kind of document that you want. But now we want to allow our system to know this particular record is, so I'm going to do here admin, then I'll just do that. So I'm going to do that. So I'm logged in. So if you come to approval entries, so here we'll now have all the approval entries that have been submitted for approval for all the records and all the transactions. So this will act like audit logs, or actually approval entries logs. So what I want us to figure out today is, how will we tell the system that for this particular user who is in either IT department, you need to actually send this to these particular approvers. So today I want us to cover something. I want us to define something we will call workflow user groups. So I want us to define user groups. And these user groups will be able to tell us that we need to define the user groups either based on documents or even tie these to departments. So I'm going to have here, so I'm going to call these user groups. So I'll call it workflow user groups. So I'm going to call it workflow user group. That is my model. So for this workflow user group, I want us to ensure that we should be able to tie this to a particular users and even indicate the kind of users that they are. So on this, and even give in terms of the sequence. So these users here, I want us to have a public int, then I'll have my ID, which is the primary key. Then I want us within this workflow user group, we want to detect any document. So here I want to say string. So I'm going to do here string. Then I'll have here the sender. So I'll just call it sender ID. So the sender ID should be actually, we should be able to detect the person who sent a document for approval. I'll just do string application user. This is application user. And you can do here sender. So this will give us the sender, the person who is sending the document for approval. So I'll just do here display name, and we can have now the name that we want. So we'll call this document. So we'll say document sender. Then if we have the sender, we should do a one-to-one mapping. So we just come here and I want to also say we should also have an approver ID. So I'll say document approver. So here I'll just say approver ID, and here I'll also call this approver. So this will be my approver. So we need to say if this person sender sends a document, it should go to this kind of an approver. And this approver, we need to also tell our system whether this approver is in which sequence. So you can be the first, second, or even the last. So here I'll just do int and I'll do sequence number. So I'll just do a sequence number. So this sequence number will also now define for us the approval. So I want us to add some things here. I want us to add the workflow user group. So here I'll call these, can I have this as code, and I can also have the description for this workflow user group. So this workflow user group will, so I want us to have here the description, but I want us to change how we are going to approach this. You see this sender, approver ID, and the approver and the sequence. These we need a list. So what I want us to do is I want us to call this approver workflow user group. Then I want us to copy this, and down here I want us to split. I want us to remove this line of codes here. So we just have that, and then we remove this as well. Then here we say workflow user group members. So these workflow user group members, Here we'll just create a workflow. This workflow, we can say this is a workflow for leave application. So all the leave applications will be using this workflow. And this workflow will actually define our approval matrix. So inside this workflow, we need to assign the workflow to user group members. And these user group members, we need to say this is a primary key, and we need to tie it to our workflow user group user group. So here I'll just say this is so this should be workflow user group here, and we need to call, so we can call this int, and you can say workflow user group ID. Then I want us to now have, this is a foreign key for our workflow user group. So here I'll just call workflow user group. So I'm going to explain that so that you're able to follow. So as you can see, we have our workflow user group. So we are going to create a workflow user group, whether it is a leave application, whether it is, you can say something else, whether it is an Impress application, or whether it is an salary advance request. So that will fall part of this. Then here, we'll actually now define our workflow matrix. So if this person under leave, so we need to know under leave application, which is the matrix, who is the sender and who is the approver, and what sequence are they. So this approver is in which sequence. So you'll notice that the sender can be one, and they can actually be, approver can be one receiving these requests from multiple users. So these workflow user groups, I think the way we've just defined, we need to ensure that they are part of our tables. So I'm going to add them here. So you see we have our approver entries. Then you are now introducing something called workflow user group. So I want to have this, and I can call these user groups. Then I also want to have these, and I can call these workflow members. And these will be our workflow members as well. So actually this should be, I like my models being in singular, then my tables will be in plural. So that is it. So if we do that, then we should now be able to define our matrix. But now I want us to define something before. I want us to add, in fact, let's just add migrations. So I'm going to add custom. So I'll just do here NuGet package manager. Then I'm going to run migrations. So I'll just do add migration. Then I'll say workflow user groups. So if I just enter, it will actually update add the migrations. So if you're new to this channel and you're following this video, please subscribe and like our videos. So there you go. So our migration file has been generated. So the next thing that we are going to do is to run to update our database. So I'm going just to update our database here. I'll do update database. Then if you press enter, then our tables will be generated. So all the tables will be added, the two tables that we've just included. So there we go. So as you can see, our table has been added. So everything should be okay. So the next thing that I want us to do is I want us to scaffold. So let's just go to scaffolding so that you don't just get we just get the code, but I'll show you how this data will be added to our tables. So let's just do new scaffolded item. So I'm going to do add new scaffolded item. Then MVC controller with views using EF. Then I'm just going to choose here our workflow. It should be the last thing. Our workflow user group. That is so I'm going to generate that. So then this will generate our code for actually creating our workflow user groups. Then we should also create now the workflow user group members. So if you're following this video and you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We noted 90% of you guys are watching our videos and you've not subscribed. So as you can see, our code has been generated and we are good to go. So the next thing is we need to generate also the workflow user group members code. So I'm going to generate, then I'll just go to workflow user groups, members, then also generate the same. So let's just wait and see, and I'm sure our code will be okay. So it's scaffolding, building our project, then we should be able to proceed from here. So we are going to add these navigations to our project, able to create a workflow user group and add the members. So we are going to do that so that we ensure we are set for the next configurations. So if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. So there we go. So I want us to go to our views down here, and we should be able to see that we have our workflow user group, then under index. So this is, so I'm going to borrow some styles from what we had done. So I'm going to borrow this. So I'm trying just to make this look better. So here, and use the data tables. So this is add new workflow. So I'm going to say add new workflow user group. So this is add new workflow user group. So we'll be having our user groups, and this is workflow. So we'll say this is workflow user groups. So if we do that, workflow user groups a list, then I'm going to do this. So I'll just do that. So if I comment this and we do this, then we should be able to have our list of. So I'm going to say this is workflow user groups. Sorry, so this is groups. So if we do this, then the next thing is we should also do the same thing for our user group members. So that is the members who belong to every particular user groups. So I'm going to go to workflow user group members here. Then I'm going to update it here. So I'll call this add new workflow user. So add new user group members. So I'll say user group members. So that is okay. So here I'll just call it user group members, user group members. Then this is workflow user group members list. So then after adding that, so I'm sure this is this, I think we copied something wrong there. So I'm going to copy this and we have it here. I'm going to have it here. And this should be table, we should have here table row, sorry, table row, and I can do away with that. So that should be okay. And we can now close our table here. So I'm going to close it here. Sorry, do that. So then I'll minimize. Then when we go to our sidebar, I'm going to add now the navigation. So let's just go to shared. Then under workflow user group, under system administration, I'm going to add something. So we are going to add our workflow user groups. So here, I'm going to add workflow user groups. So I'll say workflow user groups. So this will now give us all the user groups that we have within our system. And you can define different workflow user groups. So let's just do this. Then we should be able to see how we will link this to different applications when they are sent. That is the different documents when they are sent for approval. So let's just launch our application and see how we can create workflow user groups. So let's just proceed and see. So application should be launching, then we are good to go. So there we go. So I'm going to log in and I can just do my password here. Then if I log in, I should be able to navigate to system administration, then workflow So I think we missed something. So I'm going to add a spelling there. Workflow user groups. Then if you go back, then we click workflow user groups. It takes us now to our code and description, which is actually part of the workflow user group. So if I click add new, it is giving us an option to add the workflow user group. So what I'll add is I'll call my leave. Maybe I call ICT. So ICT, then I call it ICT leave application user group. So this is my user group for everyone in the ICT department. So I'll just create, and we should be able to have this created if everything is okay. But you see, we have a challenge because we are tracking audit trails in our application. So what we need to do is we actually need to supply the logged in user. So I'm going to just go to our workflow user group, and everywhere we are doing insertion, you should actually check our user and supply it within our save changes async. I'll do the same for the update. I'll also pass the user here. Then if we go to workflow user groups as well, under create, I'm going to add something here. Then I'm going to supply so this actually gives us the logged in user. Then I'll do the same for the edit, and I can pass my changes there. So let's just relaunch our app and try to create a workflow user group. So I'm going to do that. So let's just wait and see. So for the meantime, if you feel you can buy us coffee, you can actually use the link description below to buy us coffee. And if you feel you want to claim the source code, you can also use the link below to claim the source code. And you will be helping us much to actually continue doing such videos. So I'm going to just use, so I'm going to say here admin is my password. Then I'll just do here. So if I do this, I'm going to sign in. Then if we go to system administration and the workflow user group, I can now add a new user group. I'll just say we are done ICT. So ICT leave, then this is ICT. So we are done ICT leave application user group. So if I click create, we should be able to see now we have the ICT leave application user group. The reason as to why we were getting an error, our system is tracking what we are calling audit logs under here. And if you go to audit logs under the new tab, you'll notice that we are actually tracking, if you go to the last section, you see we are tracking the activity. Here we have a create, and we have the workflow user group, and this is the, we've done this. So what I want us to do now is, remember we've created an ICT leave user group. We can also create another workflow. For example, I am in finance, so I'll say finance. The approvers in finance might be different from the approvers in ICT. So I'll just do finance leave. Then I'll just say finance leave application user group. So this is my second application user group. If I create, I have these two user groups. So I want us to do something. So on these user groups, you see we have the finance leave application user group and ICT leave application user group. I want us within this user group, we actually tie the members, and these members are actually the approvers. We need to tie the approvers for these user groups. So let's just do something, and I want us to be doing that from here. So I'm going to copy this style that we had done under leave applications, whereby, let me just take you there. Under leave applications, I'm going to index. Then under index, we have these drop down options where I'm going to copy here. Then we just reuse it. So I'll just go to my user groups. Then under index, I'm going to paste this here. Then under actions, so I'll call these actions. So under actions, the only thing that you can do, you can actually do an edit, you can view, you can delete. And I want us to say you can assign approvers. So you can say assign approvers, or you can say assign group members. But this is kind of like approvers. So I'm going to say assign approvers. So then I can remove this reject. We don't need it. So here we now have the, I'll have this as a lock. So we have the view. We don't want to have the delete. I'm going to remove that. So we have the view, edit, and assign approvers. So these assign approvers should take us now to our workflow user group members. So that is where we need to assign the user group. So I'm going here and I can actually say, so I'm going to, let me just say here, let me stop this. We are going to our workflow user group members. So I'm going to copy the name of my controller. So this is the name. And we need to have here, I'm going to have this as index. It should take us to index with an ID, and you can actually specify the controller. So I'll say SP controller, and I can say our controller name is actually this. So workflow user group members. So under index, we should confirm that under workflow user group members index, we should supply the ID. So here I'll just say we need an int here, and I'll just do this, and I can say ID. So here we are getting the workflow user group members. So here I'll just say members, and these members I'll do await. These members is actually the members that, so I want us to do here dot where we need only to filter the members that are based on the workflow user group that we've chosen. So I'll just filter here dot, then I'll say workflow user group. Remember, it has a relationship. So the workflow user group, we pass it the ID that we've supplied there. And this is to list, remember. So this is, so here we should say to list async. So I'm going to do that. Then what we should return here is actually the members. And that should be okay. So our index page will only be giving us only the members that are based on the workflow user group that we've selected in our workflow user group here. When we do, remember we are here, we should actually supply. So I'm going to do, I think let's just see what will happen. So if we create, so let's just launch our application. So when we create our user group members, we can actually select the workflow user group that they are part of. So we can control the look and feel in our next series, so don't worry. So here I'm going to do that. So here I'm going to do provide the login credentials, and we can sign in. So if we go to system administration and the workflow user group, you'll notice that now I have these actions. And you can see I have the edit, view, and assign approvers. So if I click assign approvers, it actually takes me to user group members. So if I click add new user group, you can see it gives me the workflow user group ID. It gives me the document sender. It gives me the document approver, and it gives me the sequence. But you cannot tell what are these guys. So these are actually user IDs. But we don't want to be showing that. I want us to be showing the names of the approvers and the names of those senders who are sending documents for approval. So let's just go back to our workflow user groups. So these are the users. So under users, we have a full name. So you can specify we want to view the full name. Then also here we'll do full name. Here we'll also do full name. Then under workflow user groups, we can actually display description. So this is what we need to display, description. The same thing here, we should display description. So then I want us to remove this. And here we can actually do away with validate because it will give us issues. We are not using view models. So if we just do that, then we should be good to add our workflow user group members. So let's just launch and see. So for those who are following these videos and you are very interested on it, please subscribe. And if you feel you want to buy us coffee, if it's a hot one, we will really appreciate. Use the link down below, and you will really motivate us to do this series more. So I'm going to add this. Then I'm going to provide my password. Then if we just go to our dashboard, under system administration, then workflow user groups, then under ICT, I can go and assign approvers. Then if I click add new user members, I can now see my workflow user groups that we've just created. And I can choose, I want to create the workflow user group for ICT. And I can specify, I want the first approver will be macro code subscribe. The second approver is macro code. That is when the macro code approver sends a document, the person who should approve is actually macro code subscribe. So I think these names are not well. So let's just change the names in the database so that we are okay with the names. So I want us to change the names. These names are a bit funny. So let's just go to the database and manipulate the names so that we are able to track these all series. So let me just update I'm going to update the names of I want to update the names of those users. So let me just do this so that you're able to see what we are doing. So I'm going to update under the database, I'm going to update the names of the users. So I'll just go to ASP.NET users, and this is where we have all our users within the database. So these are the users. Actually, you should not be able to modify or approve something if you are not a user in our database. So the full names, as you can see, others have the full names, others don't have the full names. So you can actually do, I want to generate, so I'll just say update. So I'm going to do update ASP.NET users set full name. So do you have full name? Let's just confirm. First name. So I'm going to have first name. First name, I'm going to say the first name for this person will be, so I'll call this John. Then we can do the second name, middle name. We can do John. So I'm going to do John Kamau. Then I'll also do the last name. The last name will be Karanja. So these are my where. So where ID is. So I'll be doing that. So I want us to update the names one by one before we actually do the update users. So if we do that, I'm going to update the first one. So let me have my select star from, I'll have here select star from ASP.NET users. So here I'll just do for the first one. Then I'll also update. So let's just do this. So I'm going to do that way. So our users are not many. So we are going to do that. So the first one we've done is John. So I'm going to do here Tom Mwangi. Njue. Sorry. So I'll call this Njue. Then I'm trying to have different approvers so that you're able to see how our application works. So I'm trying to have different names. Then here I'll call Mercy Kibet. So I'll call Kibet Tor. Then I'll have this as the user ID. I'll also have another one. I'll call this Alan Joshua Mbiu. Then this is our user ID. Then I also have Timon Kangio Mbue. So these are just random names, guys. So they are not real names. So that is it. Then I'm having here Joshua. So I'll just Joshua Kibet Chacha. So if that is it, then I'll have my username here. Then I'll also have Badaya Kingo Kimani. So I'll have this. This is the user. I'll also have another one. I'll say Lena. So I'll call here Lena Kimani Jue. So here I'll have this as the name ID. Then I'll also have now the last one. So I'm going to update the name of the last. Then here we'll update the ID. Sorry, update the ID. So I'll update the ID here, and I can say Purity Cheche Wafula. So if we do that, then I'm going to update our usernames. So I'm going to do this so that we have real names. So after you are done with that, let's just go back to our application, and you can see we have now real names. So I want us now to have real names here so that you're able to see how this works. So I'm going to map John. When John sends something, it goes to. So I'll use the first 4. How many are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll use the first 4 and the last 4. So the first 4 will be my senders and the last 4 will be my approvers. So I want us to use so if John sends a document for approval, I want to say the approver always will be. So we can say the approver, these guys are in ICT. So we'll say, let's say all these guys are actually in ICT. So we'll say John, the only person who is at the top is Obadiah. So I'm going to assign John, and the person to approve is Obadiah. Or we can say his line manager is I will say Alan. So Alan is the first sequence. So if we create, so something there didn't went well. So let's just check here. So I'm going to initiate another one. So if we just do John, then we say Alan, and we say sequence is 1. If we create, let's check what is wrong. So there we go. So yes, so our data is saving. So let's just go back to workflow user groups, and you can see, let's just check on the database. Actually, we have the data. So I'm going to delete it for now because then we try to enter. Let's just do away with them. So I want us to create a fresh. So John, Then the first approver is Alan. So if we create, so let's just proceed. So there we go. That has been created. But now let's just confirm. I think we did something. So let's just remove this for now so that we see what is happening. So if we do that, we need also to change our workflow user group index. I want us to use here, instead of ID, we just do description. And also here we do full name. These are our users. So I'll just do full name. And here also I'll do full name. So if we do that, let's just relaunch our application. So I'm going to start again. So we are going to define the sender and the approver and the sequence. So let's just see. So let's just see. So that is the so there we go. I'm going to log in. So here I'll just provide my password. And if we log in, I'm going to workflow user groups. Then just one of them. Then as you can see, we now have ICT leave application user group. The sender, if John sends a document, the first approver is Alan. So if we also do the same thing, and we say if John sends a document, the second approver is Mercy. So here I'll just do 2. And remember, we need to ensure those workflow are actually well defined. So you see, this is the person, John, this is the sender. And also I want to have the third approver. Remember, the first one sending our document is John, and the last approver is Obadiah. So if I do that, you can see I now have 3. This is the sender, and this is the approver. You can also do the same thing. If we just have someone in ICT, like for example, you see this is John. We can retain these as the approvers, Alan, Mercy, and Obadiah. So I want to add another user here who is part of ICT. So I'll also say John or Tom, the approver is still Alan, and the sequence is number 1. I'll also do the same thing. I do Tom. This is Tom. Tom. The next person is Mercy, and is the second person. And also do the same thing. I'll do Tom. The last approver is Obadiah, and I can have this as 3. So you can see this is John, and this is the first approver is Alan, and Mercy, the last is Obadiah. These guys are in ICT. The person is Tom. If they send a leave application, the first person to approve is Alan, and the second person is Mercy, and the last person is Obadiah. So I'm going to leave it to today at that point. We have managed to create a workflow user group, and we are tying workflow user group to members. So in our next video, we should be able to see how we can configure this, and also see how we can link our leave applications to automatically detect the person sending an approval, and now generate our approval entries at this point, whereby we'll be able to now have our approval entries, which will be tracking them based on what has been done. So I'm going to leave it there. If you're new to this channel and you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and see you in our next video. Bye.